Hello everyone and welcome to episode 71 of Retro Encounter. My name's Alana Hagues and I'm your host for the second part of Shadow Hearts Covenant. With me again is Mike Sollosi.
Hey everybody.
Robert Fenner.
Pleased to be back.
And Steph Sybydlo.
Woo!
So, 50 hours later and we've travelled all across the world, across Japan, even to Takamagahara almost, and well, what are we left with? I guess Shadow Hearts Covenant is a bit of just a crazy ride for the whole game. And then the ending is what we're going to kick off with, I think. So, seeing as Mike, you are the first person, well, the newest to play this game, What did you think of the ending? Because we had some pre-show chat about it, and you are trying to piece things together, which I think is probably how I felt the first time I played it.
Right.
So, go ahead.
Right. Well, first of all, I should mention that this was not the final conflict I was expecting. Because, I mean, they were setting up Rasputin to be the main villain, and I thought he was going to be a presence to the end, but he barely survives the halfway point. And then I figured, okay, this is still going to be about Russian succession, and Alexei is going to be the final boss. And then that didn't happen. And then I was really not sure where they were going with the plot anywhere, and figured maybe it's just going to be some kind of existential demon thing happening. And you end up with this sort of emotional clash at the end about loss and wanting to redo time, and a main villain who doesn't really seem like a main villain in Kato. But the ending, okay, my understanding is that the mistletoe is still in Yuri and is about to kill him, and you get to choose to either live the rest of your life as a soulless version of Yuri that doesn't remember anything, or die but go to heaven, and the Yuri's version of heaven is meeting Alice again on the train in Shadow Hearts 1. But
Pretty much.
It could be that, or somehow the mistletoe sends him back in time to Shadow Hearts 1 and lets him play that through to the good ending.
Well, yeah. That's
Okay.
Kind of sorry, I cut in there. So that's the thing that took me a while to get around my head. So
I'm not sure if there's time travel or not. We mentioned it last.
There is.
Okay.
Yep.
Because we mentioned it last week a little bit. I'm not sure if it was on the recording or after the recording, but it seemed like there was time travel shenanigans happening, maybe, because you mentioned that that both endings in Shadow Hearts 1 were canon, which confused me a little bit. But from the way it's framing it, I'm not sure if Yuri was thrown back in time or if his soul gets to re-experience Shadow Hearts 1. Maybe his soul was just thrown back into his version of himself. I really need some help.
Well, the general gist is like you play the first game and get the bad ending, so Alice takes the Four Mask Curse and dies. Shadow Hearts Covenant ends with the good ending where Yuri dies, gets sent back in time to relive Shadow Hearts 1 and get the good ending where Alice lives, essentially. That's my understanding of it generally.
Yeah.
I don't really go into too much about the soul or anything, but I don't know, what does everyone else think?
I thought a lot of that was just kind of plot hogwash anyways. It doesn't really matter, but I think most
it's
fans
definitely
like to
plot
think
hogwash.
that Shadow Hearts 1 is basically you play it, you get the bad ending canonically, you play the second game, and then you kind of go back and play the first game technically and get the good ending.
Yeah.
All right.
You get a chance to redo it.
But Yuri's not the only person who goes back in time, which
No.
gets us into some weird territory.
Oh, I remember that.
All right. Now, I haven't played Shadow Hearts 1, but my understanding is that you meet Yuri's mother in that game, and her name is Anne or Anna.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
And on the battleship, when they're faking Russian passports for themselves, Karin gets one and names herself Anne, or Anastasia gives her the name Anne.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and then through the ending, Karin gets thrown back in time and then meets Yuri's father and is actually Yuri's mother.
She gets amnesia or something, right?
I'm not sure, probably.
But when I needed to look up some materials to try and figure out what was happening, and someone on some forum mentioned that Yuri's mother named Yuri after her first love.
Oh wow!
That was something mentioned in Shadow Hearts 1. I haven't played it, but that's yeah.
Not weird at all.
Yeah, see, we touched on it last week, or I think I did, but the whole
To be fair, I mean, how would she ever have known that any of what was going to happen would happen? and at least it all turned
Yeah.
out okay, and everything's still back in order.
Yeah.
But I do think it's kind of funny how they, in effect, they actually fit into the original story really well because Karen's German, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Um,
she
Right.
is.
Yeah, so but now she thinks she's Russian, which
Because she has
kind
a
of
Russian passport that says Anna on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Yuri's actually half Japanese, half German, not half Japanese, half Russian.
The axis of evil.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, hey, come on. Well, I mean, technically Russia was not an Axis power, but sure.
Well, Russia's not involved anymore, is it?
Yeah, correct. You're right.
Oh.
Yeah,
It was all a feint.
so it's actually pretty cool how they made it all work out in the end.
Yeah, they do tie up loose ends in a very interesting, strange way, but they do that.
Details are slimy, but yeah, at least they actually managed to pull it off without, causing too many retcons to the original stuff.
I have to
Yeah.
wonder how much of it was planned in advance, but I think they made the best of it,
I think so. I
certainly.
feel happy with the end. I don't want
Yeah.
anything after it, and I'm happy.
All
'Cause
things
when-
considered, like I thought it was actually a really clever twist on the entire time travel plot, and it
Yeah.
kind of adds credence to both the good and the bad ending in the first game.
Yeah, I believe there's a reference to it in the third game as well, because Roger Bacon's still in the third game, and I
Oh.
think he says something about, I can't remember the specifics of it, but something about Yuri or something about everything being okay. And you're just like, no, hang on a minute, didn't everyone die? And it's like, oh no, there's the time travel thing. And obviously, Shadowhearts 3 is set after the good ending of 1, so 2 probably didn't even happen, I guess. But it's
No,
quite...
2 is a dark timeline that's not experienced in the good
Yeah.
ending of 1. And,
Yeah.
That's why Lenny is such a good boy in 3.
Exactly. Oh, of course, yeah. Oh, Lenny.
But I actually did like that you pointed out that, Kato does not really seem like a bad guy. And yeah, because you actually see him a lot in the first game.
Yeah.
And he's this kind of like wimpy, friendly giant kind of guy.
He's
So
kind of inconsequential. He's just like a sidekick to a much more
very
important
much,
character.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I
no-
think it's actually pretty interesting that, both Yuri and Kato experience just a ton of loss and they both deal with it very, very differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a little surprised to hear you say that he was not consequential and or even wimpy in the first game, because he has a little bit of gravitas and seems like he was, I don't know, some kind of lieutenant to a major character in the first game. But I'm only seeing this through the lens of someone that's only played Covenant. But
Yeah.
having a minor NPC from the first game show up in such a big way in this game and have an interesting villain arc that's motivated by loss and not really by evil it seems very in character for what Shadowhearts is, because I was fooled into thinking that this game would be against some the final conflict would be against some kind of megalomaniac or a giant demon, but it ended up being this, an emotional story about someone dealing with loss, which is exactly what Yuri's dealing with. So in a way, Kato and Yuri are similar in that they lost someone very important to them in the events of the first game, and and like you all said, they're dealing with it in very different ways, and I was surprised and impressed with how the plot shook out into a final conflict.
Shadowhearts in general seems to actually do that very well with its characters. I actually thought, as creepy and strange as Geppetto was, his side quest story was actually pretty touching as well. Because similarly, he's dealing with the loss of what was it, his daughter, I think.
Mm-hmm.
His daughter, yeah. Or his wife.
Yeah.
No, his wife's still alive, isn't she?
No, it's his daughter, and his puppet
Yeah.
was patterned after his daughter.
That's right.
Yeah, for a second
And
I
so-
thought you were talking about the emotional tragedy of the gay tailor making dresses, but I realized what you meant. My bad.
No, I skipped the side quest.
And dress up my daughter real doll in sexy outfits. Ew.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
I never got a sexual thing between him and the puppet, but
No,
I didn't either.
not
She's
too
dressed
bad.
a
puts her in
bit scantily,
Veronica's
but that's
clothes.
about it.
Oh,
okay,
there is
that
that.
is true.
There's that bit.
Whoops.
Oh,
But it's powerful. It's to strengthen her.
of course it is. Beautiful. Feel empowered.
Don't you?
The side
Oh,
quest
yeah.
the side quest that made
When
me
you-
uncomfortable was getting the final special attack for Joaquin.
I knew you were
gosh.
going to do that.
Was it the tower, the wrestling tower thing?
It's the Man Festival.
I'm a big fan of the Man Festival.
I think the Man Festival is hilarious until Great Gamma tells you what the winner gets.
Oh, I love the Man Festival. It was just such a funny little end to that side quest. It's great.
Joaquin never left my party the whole game since getting him.
No, same.
He's the second best attacker after Yuri. He has enormous sanity, so I never had to bother with. That's
usually why I left Karen out. Actually, her sanity was way too low.
Yeah, it's why I hated using Anastasia too, is because her sanity was way too low. I ended up using Blanca.
I used everybody else.
Yeah, me too. And actually, Blanca ended up being my highest level character for a while because he has 2 segments where he's the only one in the party and he's the only one that fights in dogfights.
Yeah, he gets extra experience. See, I must be a glutton for punishment because I had Karen and Anastasia along with Joachim and Yuri because Karen's got some really... The nice thing about the combo system is that the more damage you do is based on the amount of hits you do. So Karen has like the 24 hit sword move, which is incredibly good. And Anastasia, I just think she's cute. She's just there.
Karen's a good attacker. I just the sanity system, while interesting, got really frustrating for low sanity characters. And this is a callback to the beginning of the game, I guess. But I did not understand sanity at all. So when you were doing the dungeon that's just her and Nikolai, she got her sanity down to 0 in the boss fight multiple times, and I had no idea what was happening. I thought the boss had done something to make her berserk, and it wasn't until I had a full party of characters that I figured out what sanity was.
It's not one of those bad games though, where it's like you have to constantly be monitoring that.
No.
Most fights you can get through without having to pay attention to it. Maybe a few boss fights you got to heal up.
It's only bosses that it bothered me, but because I was able to win probably a good, definitely more than half of fights.
Because games are really obnoxious about that kind of thing, where you always got to be monitoring it, or Lunar Dragon Song, where you got to watch your HP when you're running.
God, just don't play Lunar Dragon Song.
But the SP system, I can't actually remember specifically from the original, but they actually simplified it. So in the original, I think it was exclusive to Yuri, but his SP wouldn't regenerate after fights, and you had to go and cleanse Malice in the yard. So you actually had to replenish Yuri's SP separately. I think the rest of the parties might have replenished at the end of each fight like it does in Covenant. But with Yuri specifically, he'd have like 50 SP, but he'd always have 50 SP. It would go down to 25 in a fight, and it would stay to 25 outside of battle.
This is not selling me on Shadow Hearts 1 any better.
If you thought that
wasn't bad. There's like 2 dungeons that go on a bit long, where that gets a bit nerve-wracking, but it's not that bad otherwise.
Yeah, items are pretty cheap if I remember rightly as well. They're like not too bad.
If you thought that the graveyard in Covenant was something that was annoying and cumbersome and should have been a menu, boy, Shadow Hearts 1 has got you covered.
I didn't think the graveyard was that bad. I maybe wouldn't have minded if it had been simplified to a menu, but I never was bothered by it, and it was kind of a cool space to check out.
The one thing I liked about the first game is the masks were especially cool and creepy.
Yeah, they're really mean.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like a bit more. So, like, I get the symbolism in Covenant's graveyard, but I like that it looks like an actual graveyard in one. It's just much more simple.
The one thing I didn't like about the graveyard in Covenant is that because of the fixed camera and moving around, I couldn't see 2 of the 6 rooms until I realized I was missing 2 and had to move to a different part of the room. So I think
2 random elements. You're just like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's like I forget which 2 it was. I think one of them was wind, but I think it might have been wind and darkness.
Is it wind and earth? Maybe.
Wind and earth, maybe. Okay, maybe that was it. Because I used the fire armor guy for most of the game anyway.
I love the designs of those things too. Actually, did you by any chance go all out and get like every single one of his forms?
Not all of them, but I found 2 or 3 soul drops, and I used them to upgrade the fire and darkness guys.
It's one of those games where if you follow through on that entire side quest, it becomes incredibly easy to beat the game, which I always like, but, I always like that kind of, like, here's the reward for your easy mode. Yeah.
Yes, Seraphic Radiance is
Yeah,
the
I
most
did-
overpowered thing ever. It's got like
Yeah.
the massive ultimate move, the huge healing
Well,
move, and then the buff everything move.
Well, I mean, for the final boss, I had the the fully upgraded fire demon, and I just used his power up move, and then I used
Yeah.
the item that let me cycle through his wheel 5 times. So I was able
Oh,
to.
the fifth key.
Yeah. So I dealt, I think, 3,700 damage in one turn
Whew.
once to the final boss.
Beautiful.
It
The final boss is actually quite a good bout, too.
Yeah,
hmm
I like it.
It's and it gets into some Japanese mythology, that Susanoo Okami stuff.
Yeah, to me the
Yeah,
game does
cool.
not do mythology like quite a bit of justice. Not always accurately, but it's a lot of fun to actually go with it.
Yeah, in a way, it reminded me of an SMT game, just incorporating multiple
Definitely.
multiple
Mhm.
folklores together in a sort of messy, unique JRPG way. But it was cool seeing all of that. I liked the references and the look of the final boss.
Yeah. I think we can all agree, though, the ship was the worst dungeon.
Yeah.
Oh my
Wow.
I
God! What
hate
a
that
way
dungeon.
to start your disc.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought
Oh.
I thought the tower at the end of the first disc was pretty bad.
Oh yeah,
oh,
But-
really? Oh, with the Switch dungeon where you have to move the cages up and down and
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, this is a bit of a chore. Hopefully, the second disc they calm down a little bit, and no, they don't.
Oh,
Mike, was
Oh,
that when you
boy.
sent me a message saying, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this in time? Was that when you sent it?
No, it was after that. But I had
Okay.
sort of suspected, oh man, there's going to be a bunch of endgame dungeons that are as bad as the battleship, and that wasn't quite the case.
I thought
Not
that
it-
Edar
not
Flame
really,
would
yeah.
be the worst thing, but the battleship
Yeah.
kind of overtook it for me.
yeah, I think
I gained so many levels at least, so, like, the rest of the game wasn't too bad.
in the
I was like,
battleship.
But also, like
Battleship.
the kanji on that map doesn't correspond to
No.
what it says that they are. They're not saying 1, 2, and 3, and they're definitely not saying A, B, and C. So like I was trying to, and since they're only labeled in Japanese on the map, I
So
was
does
like
it make
trying
it
to
more or less confusing if you're a Japanese speaker?
well more. When they're
Wow.
telling you
helps to
like,
know
oh,
nothing.
you want to open door 1, and it's like there's no numbers on here at all.
Like man.
That
It's a
is
mess.
horrible dungeon. I also don't like Immortal Mountain. I just
Oh.
like it's easy to get through straight away, but if you want everything in there, you have to put the colors in so specifically. And I just
I
don't
have to
really
admit
do
I used a guide for that because I was in a little bit of a hurry to finish. I finished the game very late last night. And then, so when I was
Oh,
doing
same
that,
here.
it's like, okay, I don't need to reason. I'm not going to be able to reason this out in a reasonable amount of time. So,
Yeah.
game FAQs, what you got for me? Yeah.
This game seems to have a preoccupation with these little gimmicks that just make you do a whole bunch of backtracking, and I'm not down with that.
Yeah. I don't mind doing in areas, but not in dungeons.
Oh
There's-
god, one of the ones is probably the block puzzle that you got to go back for. You get like
Oh
a.
no.
Ah.
Oh, I
Solving
hate that.
It's the one in
puzzles
the
and
dungeon
fighting
where,
random
where
encounters
Roger
should be
Bacon
next.
is. It drove me nuts.
I think I said it on the last podcast, but moving block and moving platform dungeons are my
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
least favorite things
no,
ever.
Even with a guide, it's still incredibly confusing.
It's not the Roger Bacon dungeon. It's the one where you have to find the Emigre manuscript.
Like,
Yeah,
you know what? There's a whole
theme.
bunch of real losers among
Yeah.
those dungeons. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there
It's
is.
a great game, but the dungeons really, really tick me off.
I think I mentioned this in the last episode, but my favorite dungeon was probably the Sapiente's Gladio headquarters because it was short.
It is the best. Yeah.
It's just tiny.
It was
If they were
short
all
and,
like
and it was
that, I'd
and
be into
yeah,
that.
it was just finding a bunch of secret passages in like in like, you know, an old Italian house. It felt like I was playing a spy game. It was great. Like
I actually like a lot of the locations, like even where God, I forgot where that resistance group is kind of hanging out. You know, and it's kind of like all built into the rock.
yeah, the one in Turkey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like that place I thought was just gorgeous to look at, and some of the villages in the Japanese part of the game were actually really cool too.
Yeah.
I thought the villages in the second disc were more interesting than those in the first disc. Because
Definitely.
they
They're
did
more
shake up
colourful.
the music a little bit, and
Yeah.
kind of all those French and Italian towns and British ones too kind of have like the same like houses that look similar and streets that look a little too similar.
Yeah. Like, it's one thing to be playing a fantasy game sometimes, but it's also nice to kind of live vicariously through a game that's kind of, taking a different part of Earth and just seeing it represented in a video game. It's oddly charming to do. So, like, I even liked walking through an old Japanese house. I just thought that was kind of cool.
It's nice. It's like
It's a nice
former
moment.
housing. Yeah.
Yeah. The theme song there is really nice, too.
Oh, I love the town themes for Japan, especially Inugami. I think that was what you were referencing last episode.
Yeah, it's just a nice piano theme.
Yeah, I love Inugami Village. I like the clay idol that Joaquin picks up.
What did you guys think of the final party member?
Well,
Joins.
I feel bad for Karando, because actually Karando is really powerful. Like, when you get him, when I got him, he was like 50 or 70 stronger than everybody else, and I was like, oh, brilliant. And I really like Tsukiyomi, his first fusion, because I'm a bit of a sucker for like light moon based stuff, but you just forget about him. He
did
kind of
nothing
like,
for me.
he's so atypical as well. He's like,
oh look, it's another harmonizer.
18-year-old.
He would have been good, but he's too little, too late.
He felt like the protagonist of a different RPG that just joined you. That just joins you for the last third of the game.
Yeah,
I thought he was charming enough, and his final form is actually really good if you again go through the effort to get it. But I do like how you meet him too, and him and Blanca kind of like get together a little bit.
Snowball.
Yeah, I always like seeing the parts of a game that kind of ditch the protagonist for a bit. So I just think it's really cool when Yuri kind of gets left behind and see what happens there.
Well, they did something similar in the first game, because you get Hallie really late, don't you, in 1, because you get him in London, and London is literally like...
But I remember I stuck with him because...
Hallie's good.
Yeah, he's really, really good.
I swapped him in for Alice, so I had Alice swapped out for Hallie, and then Keith and Yuri, and I was like, sorted, because Hallie had the healing sorted. Keith could heal himself, and Yuri's okay. So,
I used Karando a little bit, but ultimately he wasn't going to break up my Yuri, Joaquin, Blanca, Lucia combo that I had used for like more than half of the previous part of the game. So I tried him out, but I wasn't really into him.
Yeah. Did you? Sorry, go ahead.
It's having Karando and Yuri in the party at the same time. It just kind of feels like you're I don't know, like you're missing out on somebody else who should be covering another role rather than having two transforming
and I guess that
characters.
sucks because he's just not up to snuff.
Yeah.
By the end of the game, he just completely is. I think Utendoji is the only thing that's stronger than Yuri. Even as Seraphic Radiance, maybe it might be physically more powerful, but it's slow, and his ring is so disproportionate. So it
starts right away, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Tell me, his ring was
judgment.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me the judgment ring system just isn't really addictive though. Like I like how you can actually adjust how wide the slots are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's a really clever battle system in that case. Kind of really keeps you on your toes.
And also accessories like will give you unusual effects to it. Like when I was getting used to it, I equipped the slowing accessories to Yuri and Joaquin, but then I switched them out once I got much more comfortable with how their rings were shaped. And it's a very good version of timed hit stuff that you see in a lot of RPGs because it is definitely a skill-based system that you can manipulate more the better you get with it, and it doesn't slow the game down horribly like Legend of Dragoon, which I think we talked about last time.
But that's one thing I think is cool is one of the best accessories. It like doubles your attack power, but you can't see the actual nodes on the ring.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you just have to have really good timing, and I think that's actually really clever.
Huh?
Yeah. No, I used that on Joaquin for most of the end of the game, but I got way fewer strikes, but I was good enough to be able to keep getting hits. And the damage increase was so much that it made up for missing out on the strikes.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you say you use the slowdown accessory because I can't play with the Judgment Ring slower.
I've had that too.
There's something really rhythmic about it being as fast as it is. And actually, this is off of a tangent off of this. Did anyone get Yuri's ultimate weapon?
I don't think I did. No, I'm not
so.
sure how.
No. So do you know how to get it?
Oh, do you have to do those
trials?
Indulge
our audience.
Do you have to do the trials from the guy in Turkey?
No. So I believe it's in Wales, there is a mini game where you have to do 15 rotations of the Judgment Ring. I think it's 15, and it speeds up
Oh,
so, and it's
jeez.
Yuri's. Yes,
15th key.
yeah, it's the 15th key, and it's a nightmare. Somehow, I didn't do it this playthrough. I think I skipped like all the side quests just to try and get it finished. But in my second playthrough, I did it in one go, and I think the kind of elation I got out of that was like, oh Jesus! I'd gotten so used to that ring, maybe from the last time. I think if I remember right, it's a copy of Yuri's ring directly, maybe just 3 hits. But I got used to the spacing of it, that the speed was inconsequential, so it was just like speeding up a piece of music
All right.
and tapping along to it to me. So
is it better or worse than the most annoying mini games in FF10 to get your ultimate weapons?
Oh
No,
god.
Oh, it's
because
better.
that'll
It's-
take
okay.
you maybe about half hour to
Yeah.
All right, so
finally
it's
figure out.
better than chasing butterflies or dodging lightning bolts.
But it's still a very tense half hour where you might throw you're still gripping on the controller because you might throw it at the screen. So it's a lot more tense in my opinion, but it will not take you nearly as long.
No, it's not 200 lightning bolts.
Cool.
If it was 200 rotations, then maybe we're getting somewhere. But yeah, like slowing down the Judgment Ring, it really throws me off.
I only did it. I only did it mostly early on to get used to
Yeah.
the Judgment Ring system, and then I stopped. By the last couple dungeons of the first disc, I stopped doing it.
Oh yeah, I get that.
I'd gotten used to the Coral Lariat, so I used them pretty much all the way through. But I mean, anything slower, like the one that makes it 50% slower, that's
No, that's
too slow
weird.
for me.
No,
I can't
I
deal with
used
that.
I only did the 25% slower one because the 50% one was worse than not having an accessory at all. It messed me up too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did a lot of you guys do the sort of end game side quest for each character? There's like a main character quest for everybody.
I did them for Joaquin and Blanca, but I don't think I did them for anyone else.
I was low on time, so it was just manfest for me.
I have done
Lucy
them
had a
before.
pretty cool one where you can get a game over screen just from getting lost.
Oh,
Oh,
I
really?
hate that dungeon.
Yeah,
I
you're
hate the
stuck in
Black
there
Forest.
forever is essentially what happens, and
Is it-
yeah, the game just kind of fades to black and
That's
says,
kind
"Yeah,
of-
you guys are stuck
kind
in
of
the
horror
forest."
game.
Is
That's
that the
cool.
Black Forest?
Yeah, the Black
Yeah.
Forest.
I hate that dungeon. Although on my first playthrough with her, I think you can get a tarot card there, which I can't remember what it is, but you can pull them and it like times your money by like 100 or something.
Yeah.
And I remember loading up my old save file for a laugh, and I had 25 million, and I was like, "Where have I got all this money from?" You know what? That really bugs me with endgame like RPGs. Like you always get more money at the end, but you never need it because
Oh,
you don't need.
yeah, there's nothing to do with
buy
it.
anyone's weapon.
Yeah, I beat the final boss remarkably quickly because I had just stockpiled so much money and I hadn't used any of my key items.
You just went to it.
So yeah, I had a bunch of third and fifth keys, and I think one seventh key, and I just used all of them, and the boss lasted maybe 3 turns. Well, that's
Yeah.
exaggerating. Maybe it was more like 5, but whatever.
3-turn bonus dough.
Yeah, a lot
Oh,
of Yuri's fire knight armor guy just dealing 2,000, 3,000 damage. It was awesome.
Yeah, if you do like energy charge, and then if you've got Seraphic Radiance turning into Seraphic Radiance, and then do a 5th key, you're probably
That's definitely a
safe.
game that feels good to kick ass in.
Yeah, it does, because I like it. You're taking down gods. You've got to be overpowered some way.
Got to be punching them out.
Exactly. You got to punch them gods.
I did actually really like Yuri coming around and just having a good. He's not a very pretty crier, but I did like that he did have a good cry about Alice.
That does make me feel. That bit makes me feel
Come on,
really awkward. But the whole
Who's a pretty crier though?
nobody is
At all.
But yeah, it's not really something you see a lot of main heroes do, and I think it's really sweet that the game didn't really talk much about Alice, but when they did, you kind of see where the plot was going.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It kind of really changed gears from the kind of silly, Rasputin drama to to something a bit more serious and a bit more relatable, I guess.
Yeah, it breaks.
I actually remember being shocked when you see Rasputin's character profile picture, because I think that's like the only time you ever see it. He's mostly just in cutscenes.
There's a couple of cutscenes where you see the profile picture, but yeah, most of the time he's in vocalized.
Yeah.
that's-
So like as quick as he was in, he was immediately out, and then the plot kind of shifts gears in Japan. But I think it's kind of cool that they brought that back from the first game, which similarly the game starts in Asia and takes you to Europe, and this one is the other way around.
Full circle, yeah.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, it
Huh.
does. One has a constant villain in Albert Simon, though, I guess. But 2 does the really cool thing, and I think, like Mike was saying earlier, and I'll refer to it, I like villains who aren't villains, basically, who just have a clash of ideals,
Yeah.
or they have
That's
the
much
same
more
experience.
compelling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
better than
it's not
rule the
just.
world somehow.
Yeah,
I guess
Very
you know
much.
Kato a little bit from the first game though, and it's just nice to see
He was cute.
how much he's changed. He was cute
Yeah.
in the first one, and the
He
whole
was.
relationship with Kawashima is really sad. Like Oka
oh
being
yeah.
the actual
Oka was the
yeah.
And man, he was fighting for quite a bodacious babe right there.
Oh,
Like, holy
Jesus.
crap. They were very generous with their polygons.
Oh yeah.
They did some interesting rendering for women's bodies in this game in general.
Yeah, they had
Yeah.
fun.
Something I didn't know the first time around, definitely.
I didn't remember it being as racy as it was, but I was wrong.
I think off the back of playing 3, I came in a little bit more like, because 3 is a little bit looser in every way, sense of form, as in like, magical transformation girl, which is dreadful. Why would you do that? I think there's definitely one in the third game where you have to give Roger Bacon like a magical magazine, and it's not magic. It's definitely porn. It's
Yeah, I
definitely
think that's the
porn.
third game.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything similar, but no, Roger
They have a
It's-
porno
it's
magazine
not-
in each game that's relevant to a side quest.
they do.
Well, I
Very
mean,
definitely.
in Covenant, it's not a magazine; it's stud cards, which are still an
Oh,
all-time
of
great
course.
collection
I have
side
to say,
quest.
yeah, a lot of games would not include that kind of thing, and they have a hat trick for including them in all 3 games.
Mhm.
That's
For having
true.
some very plot important porno mag.
I'm struggling to think of another RPG that has a porn collection side quest. That
Wild
isn't
Arms
called.
3.
Okay.
Not a side quest, but
Wow.
the boss, yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'm not aware.
Like
I'll
a
have to
magical
ask.
book boss.
I'll have to ask Marcos about that because I know that's one of
You-
his favorite games.
I know that the Japanese version of Dark Savior, since it was set in a prison, your currency items were cigarettes and dirty magazines. But in the American game, they changed it to chocolate and candy.
Oh, come on.
I love censorship.
What was this from?
This Dark Savior on Saturn is like the follow-up to
God.
Landstalker.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
So overall reactions, did we like Shadow Hearts?
Oh, is that directed at me? I guess.
Anybody, I guess.
go with Mike because Mike's new. Go
Yeah,
for
I
it.
really want to know your opinions on it.
Yes, I liked it. It had some frustrating portions, but I don't think those were any more or less frustrating than similar games of this era. And the things it did, the story stuff and the characters and the mostly unique tone and feel of the game, I thought were interesting and or even special.
Would you go back and play the first game then?
I'm thinking about it, but a
You should.
It's not
but
very
I mean
long.
a worse
No.
It's not
a
as
worse
tedious either. Like, the dungeons are significantly better. Oddly.
Pre-rendered.
but
Yeah.
the idea of a worse Judgment Ring is not appealing.
I thought it was about the same, honestly.
Oh, really?
It's not
Yeah,
worse.
it's just-
You can't
There's
customize
less
it.
to do.
Yeah, you can't customize it, but it's not worse at all. Like it's
Okay.
maybe the angle's a little bit more off. I feel like it's tilted more away from the screen, but it's definitely not worse. I think it's worth
I actually
a go.
thought that was the case with Shadow Hearts too. I really had trouble getting into the rhythm of the second game because I came
okay.
off the first.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh. But no, I think you should play it. It's worth it because it
think
makes
about it, but-
2 more important.
And also, you said that it had less absurdity than the second game.
It's a lot less absurd. I think the atmosphere and the enemy design is absolutely out of this world and worth it,
Okay.
even if alone for that.
Because I mean, I liked the
Bosses are incredible.
I
Yeah.
liked
Oh,
the
yeah.
weird tone in Covenant where sometimes it would just be just really off the wall crazy and almost clash with the dark tone of the rest of the game. I liked that most of the time. Which
Yeah.
Play the first half hour, and I think you'll kind of get what's going on with the Shadow Hearts one, and I think you'll fall for it.
and I think I've mentioned I've played the very beginning of From the New World, and
Mhm.
I
That
actually
game is over the top.
I actually like
Oh,
the
yeah.
wacky over the top characters in it. Like I mean I know Alana's not a fan of him, but I think Frank's hilarious.
Oh.
So so I'm not sure if I'm closer
Oh.
I'm not sure if I'm closer to going back and playing Shadow Hearts 1 or moving forward and playing Shadow Hearts 3. I could go either way doing that. But no, Covenant's really good. I am definitely happy I played it through to the end. It went in some directions I wasn't expecting. And yeah, I would definitely say it's one of the better PS2 RPGs, and there are a ton of good PS2 RPGs. So it's great.
Definitely stands out, I think. It's nothing else. Is it?
So, Alana, this was a replay for you, and you said you weren't able to beat it this time. What point did you stop at?
I was really near the end, so I was just before meeting Ishimura for the last time. I think it's the time where Yuri goes in and just literally beats the living life out of him, is like loses his cool, and then just before all the Alice stuff. But I've played it twice before, and
you were busy with the Tales of Berseria copy for review, right?
oh yeah, go read it. And but yeah, I love this game a lot. I've got like a lot of feelings about it. I love the series. I wish they would do more with the series. There were rumblings a couple of years ago. I think the creator said, "Oh, I've got ideas to do a prequel with Jinparo and I think Karando's dad." And I was just like, "Oh, that's exactly what I want."
That'd be so cool.
About a year ago, he said that he was working on a game, but wouldn't say what it was, and it's been silent since then. So, I mean, knowing us, knowing our luck, he's probably working on a mobile game.
Oh, probably.
like a match 3 RPG or something.
Yeah,
it's probably that.
Going the Mana Breath of Fire route, Shadow Hearts 4, mobile phones only.
No, that would
Puzzle
make
and
me really sad. But
pay real money to get more sanity.
Oh, jeez.
I giggle because it sounds real.
It really does.
Actually, they totally would make the stamina stat sanity for mobile Shadow Hearts, wouldn't they?
Oh, they would.
That's a dark future that is alarmingly real.
I don't think I could deal with that. But yeah, coming back to it, and now I've finished and played 3. I was hard because I love this game a lot, but it's probably been about 5 years since I last played it. But I found myself struggling at times. Like, Battleship Mikasa was one point, but there were tons of dungeons. Every dungeon I went to in Shadow Hearts, I just sort of went, oh god, not this one, not this one, not that one. But then there are like really nice things, like the Soul Ring quest, and there's all the little side quests, Joachim's side quest, Blanca's side quest, Yuri's character, Yuri's development.
They're all good. The dungeons are infuriating, but the rest of it's really, really good.
There was so much that I almost blanked out. And then going back to it, I just sort of went, this is kind of killing my enjoyment a little bit. And it was really quite sad, because it's like the first time I've ever gone back and played a game that I've sort of gone, I love this game, I'd put it in my top 10, and go, oh, really? But at the same time, it's humbling because I still love this game. There's nothing else like Shadow Hearts at all. And I would really recommend everyone play at least, I would say 1 and 2. If you like silliness, play 3.
I do like silliness, but I mean, just look at other things I play and watch regularly. Of course, I like silliness.
But 3 is mechanically really, really good. So something that's really infuriating in 2 is there is actually a invisible 3 layer system. So like if you throw an enemy up in the air, you can miss if you're in a combo. But in 3, it will tell you where you're going to hit, and in 3 it tells you where you're going to hit, and in 2 it doesn't. It doesn't tell you if you're going to miss.
Yeah, I almost never did the pop up versus knockdown.
Yeah,
like Oki stuff, to use some fighting game terminology that probably won't make sense. I almost always just did the straight knockback version because I was worried about screwing something up if I did a if I did a launcher knockdown combo.
But like 3,
if they communicated better in 3, then that does sound cool.
It was one of those gaming adjuncts that you didn't need to win though, so at least that was good.
Definitely, no, but I think they're really competent games. I would love to see another variation, even like a Kickstarter variation with the same battle system. As long as the battle system lives out of it, then I'm happy. But I really like this game. I've got some mixed feelings about it now, playing it through a 3rd time. I don't know whether I'd probably like to go back and play 1 again. I'd like to relive 1 off the back of 2 and get the good ending and
have a nice cry about it.
Oh yeah, I would cry about
Getting that is worth it, actually. I really like seeing like everything that unfolds with Alice when you do actually get the good ending.
Oh yeah, jumping around a little
You
bit.
encounter what is probably one of the most frightening bosses I've ever seen in my life, and she gets to take it on solo, and it was absolutely disastrous when I was playing it at 3 a.m. and I just see this giant evil mutant enemy on the screen. I'm like, holy crap.
I'm okay.
So is getting the good ending in Shadow Hearts 1 more than just a dialogue choice? Because In Shadow Hearts
Yeah.
Covenant, it's just a dialogue choice at the end.
No, it is.
It's actually it's a pretty ring around side quest actually. I was talking about masks earlier. What you have to do is you have to kind of take on these masks. They're pretty tough, but
yeah,
it's actually really, really cool, and I don't want to spoil it.
yeah. I would say it's a lot more interesting than the simple kind of dialogue. I'd forgotten how simple the two endings were in Shadow Hearts 2.
Is it easier or harder than getting the Fierce Deity mask?
Everything's easier than that.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I think Robert kind of feels the same as me in terms of what Shadow Hearts is kind of like revisiting it has done. I don't know if I misunderstand. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
To me, bad dungeons aside, disc 1 was kind of like mwah, and that's like Italian chef kissing fingers. But disc 2 is kind of like where it started to lose some of its luster for me, and I kind of felt like a lot of games from this era, particularly on the PS2, suffer from a lot of padding, and I feel like I think really the dungeons were mostly the culprit here for the dungeons and bosses that had way too many hit points. Kind of made it feel like my time was, I don't want to say being wasted, because I did enjoy playing through it. I did enjoy my time with it. I'd never beaten it before, so I was happy to be able to do that. If anything, it's made me feel really optimistic and excited to go back to play 1 again from start to finish. Maybe a little bit like yourself, Alana. So, I mean, I'm really down with the tone of 1. I mean, it's like maybe like a half step lighter than something like Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. So it's one of those sort of rare, very grim and horror themed RPGs, and one that I look forward to experiencing again, hopefully I will feel the same about it now.
I do own all 3 games. I own all 3. So
you do?
Maybe I should go back and play 1.
Yeah, I think I don't know whether it's because I'd never played like Persona or an SMT game before. I'd played Shadow Hearts 1 and 2 and Covenant, but I don't know whether it's me as a gamer has matured maybe and sort of prefers the darker tone. And actually, I prefer the second disc to the first disc, maybe because it gets less silly. Yeah. But I completely get where you're coming from, because a lot of it is more of the same. Like there's worse dungeons, boring dungeons as well. Like even though the not sanctuary, but there's like the purgatory dungeon in the graveyard where you go.
I kind of like that one.
It's cool, but
is that the one where it's just Yuri and Karen in the first disc?
No, that's in the second disc. So that's Mirror Castle.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that was another long one though. The Hall of Mirrors and all that stuff.
Purgatory.
Yeah, see, like you said, it's just that dungeon. Oh god, this.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the second Purgatory where you have to go through the gates in order to light the candles.
I was thinking of Mirror Castle. I know what you mean now.
But yeah, no, it's just boring. Like there's nothing that really stands out about any of them, and
yeah, they're pretty samey.
A wine cellar. I mean, that was just a big ass wine cellar.
The wine cellar and the tunnel between the tunnels to Wales, and that dungeon with the dungeon with the moving platforms. There are some gnarly dungeons in this game, and but in general, I
really
think
unfair.
I think I liked the first disc a little better than the second, but that was because in the first one I was getting a new character and a new personality almost every few hours.
Yeah.
And this in the second half of the game, like the change in setting was cool, and the plot stuff with Kato was cool, but a lot of it just seemed like I was, and this was because I was playing it very, very late last night, and I finished the game a few hours ago. I was sort of when it was the middle of the night and I was just going through these dungeons in Japan. It's like, just get me to the end already, and I never felt that way in the first half of the game. So
to me, that first disc feels like a complete RPG in itself. I mean, from start to finish and ending with Rasputin.
There's so much wasted time.
A little bit. I think the beginning of the game is a little bit kind of. Oh, we'll just go here and here.
It's pretty slow.
It's you're just sort of it's like follow the evidence in just going from plot point to plot point without a ton of meaning.
It's not until you hit Russia really that it starts to gain any traction, and
I think because I am such a fan of the first game though is why I appreciated the second disc a little bit more, is because it kind of finally starts getting down to the wire.
Yeah,
about what's really going on.
I like the callbacks to that. even if some of them I don't really agree with, maybe. But I like all of the callbacks to the first game in the second disc.
Yeah, I did too.
I have to play the third game yet, but I think so far I do like Shadow Hearts 1 just a bit more than 2, just because I think it hits that atmosphere that I always look for in games.
Yeah, I think you'll like 3. I think because I didn't like it the first time I played 3, I got like
But
halfway through it.
Only the second one has a wrestling vampire hero of justice, correct?
No.
What? What?
There's a member of the Valentine family in each game, I
Right.
believe.
I think I knew that, but I mean, only one of them is a wrestler hero of justice.
Yeah.
I'm
What's
trying to think.
what's Hilda like? She's kind of like
Oh,
that, isn't
Hilda
she?
thinks she's like a superhero, so she's
Yeah.
essentially like.
Well, now I
but,
definitely know which one I'm playing next.
Yeah, but she's got a stupid gimmick which changes.
I love stupid gimmicks.
No, but this is really
It's
silly.
pretty
so,
stupid.
like basically.
Is this like caloric intake or?
Yeah, so basically, Joachim and Keith have Drain Touch. Well, she can use Drain Touch to take calories from enemies, and she can get either fat or turn into a bat, which is fine. You can do the bat thing. I like the bat thing. Keep the bat thing. But the fat thing's like annoying, and I just don't like. It's kind of I don't think it's intentionally meant to be offensive, but it's just kind of like, really, like it's female. Like you're trying to suggest something, like putting on weight makes you like
they're
stronger.
not great about that in Japan.
No, they're really not.
Sure, I mean, there's
Naomi Watanabe.
Yeah, sometimes humor in Japanese games can get a little weird when about women or gay people.
Yeah.
But
Shadow Hearts does it 3 for 3.
Yeah.
Oh,
with the predatory gay shopkeepers in each title.
Oh, yeah,
the third one has it too.
Yeah, one of the brothers runs away to America and gets engaged to some like American bike, like leather-clad man.
It's like gay Easy Rider. It's weird.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
Oh. So, Steph, what other than I think you've been chiming in all the time, but like, what do you think overall? And I think you prefer Shadow Hearts 1, which like Robert and maybe me now after revisiting it. So
I'm a really big fan of games with really good atmospheres. I feel that can usually override a lot of my feelings. Like I think Legend of Mana is just a perfect game just because of how it looks. I know it doesn't play that well, and I'm willing to excuse it just because I like the atmosphere.
That game is
so
super
much.
weird.
One of my favorites.
It is super weird, but it is so gorgeous.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. And so from top to bottom, beginning to end, I will enjoy it just because of that. And same with Shadow Hearts. I just like the atmosphere that it presents. I love that one of the first sort of dungeon village that you visit in Shadow Hearts 1 is absolutely a 180 on most dungeon and villages that you encounter in most games.
That's the dog village, isn't it? Is that
no.
Oh no.
There's a dog village?
Well, there's like mutant dogs.
No, not to spoil things, but you find out the first village in Shadow Hearts 1 is inhabited by cannibals.
Oh.
That's it.
So I think Shadow Hearts 2 is great, and I love everything that the series does. I think it's a cool thing to bring in, both history and myth together in one solid package. And if they brought the series back, I would be totally advocating it and like posting all sorts of stuff about it. I didn't like Shadow Hearts 2 as much. It's mostly the dungeon's fault, but I loved playing it, and it was just a lot of fun too. And even the emotional bits that it does hit do a really good job. Like when you encounter Alice, when you have a sit down with Albert Simon, or even Kato's motivations too.
Because that does the whole thing we were saying with Kato. Actually, that bit where you sit down with Albert Simon does the whole kind of, it was just a clash of ideals again. I like that. It was because Albert Simon was kind of like, for the most of Shadow Hearts, big bad. Kind of, oh no, this man's religious. He must be evil.
We mentioned this last week. When he speaks with Albert Simon on that like park bench in the Japan inside Yuri's mind, I think. And you told me that
the game really goes places, literal and metaphysical.
and when you told me that Albert Simon was basically a normal seeming evil villain, I was a little surprised because his portrayal in Shadow Hearts Covenant was anything but. And but in general, I mean,
it still made sense oddly.
It's not just a clash of ordeals with Albert Simon. I mean, the very first scene in that game is him just like cutting up civilians.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right.
No,
but
definitely.
I do have to say though, I basically have to agree with the frustration from the dungeons in Shadow Hearts Covenant. I think it would have been better as a like 30-hour game than a 45-hour game.
Yeah.
Because I topped out right around between 40 and 45 hours, I think.
Yeah.
That said, I thought it was really good turn-based battle systems. Like, a lot of the bosses really keep me on edge. You know, because you have to deal with like stats. A lot of the stats up stuff really helps. Then you have sanity points. Then you got different mechanics for each character to kind of play with.
I loved how every character basically operated within the same system, but felt totally unique based on their, but both based on their judgment ring and their skill set and their side quests. Every character totally felt unique, and I thought that was.
I do like when games have a difference between and I like when games have a difference between the magic that you can use and their own special attacks.
Yes.
The Final Fantasy
series does that. Final Fantasy, yes.
But Final Fantasy VI thing where everyone has magic, but everyone also has a unique skill set. That's like an ideal system for me.
Yeah.
Totally. See, the only one I don't like is Lucia's, who can be entirely random because there's 24 tarot cards and they can be turned upside down.
I use Lucia a lot. She was basically my magic user and booster for the whole.
Every so often, characters do have those party members who focus strictly on like buffs and debuffs, and I really like that.
I love those too.
I love that.
It's why I.
And Breath of Fire 3 was my queen.
Akihiko and Hagues in Persona 3. They were the two characters I used the most because one had all the buffs and one had all the debuffs.
Yeah. Definitely. You'll like Ricardo in Thread Hearts 3, who is essentially Lucia, and he has not aromatherapy, but you pick up items and he learns songs. So his weapon is a guitar with a flamethrower and a gun in it.
He's Antonio Banderas in Desperado.
He also sounds like Desi Arnaz.
But yeah, he has like these songs and they're all like stat boosts. So like they don't affect him.
Already have a favorite character. And this is a game with an Amazon ninja and a talking drunken cat, so wow.
No, Ricardo is the best character in that game. Well, my favorite, but maybe it's just aesthetically and kind of like, he's a traveling musician, and I'm a sucker for musicians. So
literally a bard. Got it.
Yep. He pretty much is.
Is it just me, or narratively does Lucia not really seem to have much of a reason to be in the party?
No, she only matters for one dungeon and for
kind of silent after that.
But what else are you gonna do? Just go back to telling fortunes? Come on.
Well, no, she does have a connection to Veronica.
She does, but Veronica disappears like at the end of disc 1.
Yes. So in the second disc, there's very little that she has to do other than collecting new fragrances and cards.
Who's that? I forgot the name of him. Who's that giant burly guy that you fight a few times in Shadow Hearts?
Lenny,
yes. I don't know if you guys ever went back and kind of talked to him, but he actually survives everything that he goes through with you guys.
Yeah.
And one thing I'd like to is that when you run into him again, you're like, oh, hey, it's you. And you just kind of stare off each other. It's like, I don't really want to fight anymore. It's like, we don't have to do this, do we? And you just kind of have to put your hands down and you kind of get some cool equipment from him.
When I was doing a little bit of research, I did read that he and, and one other character, I think it might have been Alexei, can join you in the director's cut of the game that was Japan only.
It's Veronica.
Oh, it's him and Veronica? Okay.
There's a section of the game.
Sweet. Yeah, it was a pretty sweet director's cut.
Yeah, there was an extra dungeon, and there was a section where you could play as Nikolai, Veronica, and Lenny. I believe there was an extra entire dungeon added just for them. There was also another fusion, I think. I can't remember.
I only noticed that that when I glossed over it. I didn't do a ton of looking into it.
Yeah, Lucia unfortunately fulfills the dumb blonde, which is really sad.
Or dumb redhead, as it were.
Yeah, she's sweet and I like her, but yeah, she's just kind of a bit redundant, which is sad. Like, Geppetto's not got a huge lot of relevance either, I guess, but I guess he's related to Alice, so he's kind of
taking the place of, what was his name? Yuri's old man friend in the first game, the old
Zhu
Chinese. Yeah. He kind of seems like he's standing in for him.
Zhu Zhen was cool.
Zhu Zhen was cool.
He was the cool badass old man that you have to get in every RPG. But yeah,
I guess Lucia's high point in the game was almost getting eaten by a giant pink cat. So
I thought
a pretty good moment.
As strange as Anastasia's story goes, I do think her and what's his name, Kurando getting together was actually really cute. she really gunned for it and she won.
Somebody should explain history to Kurando though, because Anastasia shouldn't live past this year. So
No.
That's why I'm happy
We took
it
we
works
took
out
we
for
took
them
care
when it
of
should.
Rasputin. It's fine.
oh, we did actually. We've
Well, I
already
mean,
cleared that.
the canon version of history is in the Don Bluth Anastasia movie musical.
Oh.
So we know that
True.
Anastasia survives, of course.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To be
Oh
with
geez,
John
that movie's
Cusack
great.
forever and ever.
Oh,
Oh man,
Nobody's happy about that.
no.
we need more RPGs that focus on mythology and real life, though. I like this
Well,
kind of.
one small touch I did like that is, connecting mythology to real life is that they allege that summoning Astaroth and increasing the malice in the world accelerated the start of World War One,
Yeah.
which I thought was a very eye-opening touch that they added to the dialogue. That was pretty cool.
So are we suggesting that Nikolai did it before the game? Because I think we're in 1915 or 16 in this
I think
game. So,
yes, I think it was
Yeah.
implied that Sapiente's Gladio accelerated the start of World War One as it was part of Rasputin's sort of grand design.
yeah, I
And-
like
and-
that.
Yeah.
I like the way they bend history to fit mythology. It's cool, but we need some more RPGs like that because I can't think of another one.
Well, I said it last time. A good companion piece to this game is the first Raido Kuzunoha versus the Soulless Army,
I
which
would
also
love to
sees
play
you
that too, yeah.
facing
Yeah.
off against Rasputin in pre-World War One Japan.
Oh, there's also Hitler in Persona 2. So you know,
Oh gosh, yeah.
The Führer.
the
because-
Führer. Sorry.
And
Not
no, it's Hitler in the Japanese version, obviously.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, there's like no other RPGs that do that.
Oh, and
Push. Go.
one other side comment. I was a little surprised that a Japanese game portrayed imperialist Japan as sort of in a mostly negative way.
That's very impressive. I
Yeah,
gotta
Yeah.
say.
because that is
They-
not something that you see in Japanese games at all.
No, a lot of JRPGs they kind of seem like a retelling of Japan's history, but with the roles reversed.
Yeah, because they don't even. I suppose I'm not really like au fait with Japanese history, but even in Shadow Hearts 1, they're not really particularly critical of it. You're fighting China, kind of. I don't really remember specifics, but
It's a little bit slightly more nationalist in that game.
yeah,
Like Japan is invading China, and
definitely.
an evil wizard is trying to keep the military at bay, and I think you side with the military.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but
So, yeah,
in this one, the military seems like part of the
Ooh.
of the villain faction, even though Kato is not necessarily evil. And but yeah, I'm used to seeing a more nationalist view from Japanese games regarding Japan around this time.
Well, in the first game, Yoshikawa, she's basically being betrayed by another faction within the Japanese military, and
Okay.
Kato is put
Yeah.
in this position where,
That's right.
like, he's sent as her lieutenant to spy on her, but he ends up falling in love with her
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
and doesn't do his duty.
Man, shoot, that makes the Oka stuff even that more rough.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah, it really
interesting,
does.
yeah. Again,
Yeah.
it's a good mix of kind of fun retelling of history
Please
to
do
fit
it.
the game context anyway.
I mean, what other periods of history would we like to see depicted in RPG form?
Shadow Hearts post World War II,
That
immediate
gee.
aftermath. That'd be all right.
would be cool. Yeah,
How about like
I
a
could,
Beat Generation '60s America Shadow Hearts?
Yes.
I could do that. Oh,
Jack
See, that's what's
Kerouac
cool
is one of
about
the
it, is that I'd
characters.
totally be
Wachowski
into
Heart.
it no matter what.
James Dean didn't die; he faked his death, and he's the main character of Shadow Hearts 4.
Man, I would totally be into it. I'm so sad there's not another game to the series.
there we go.
Mm.
This
We end the.
Shadow Hearts interpretations of history and mythology are so interesting that I would play a Shadow Hearts 4 set somewhere weird. I totally would.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. So I end this podcast then with a petition to the creator. Please make another Shadow Hearts
Yeah,
game.
like this
It
setting and this
happened.
tone, but with some slightly more, bringing the mechanical aspects up to
My-
2017 speed would be
Right.
amazing.
Oh yeah, I think like the only other battle system that rivals it is Grandia, I think. The turn-based style, anyway, I would say. And I've not played Grandia 3, so I don't know how much more that improved upon 2.
The battle system in Grandia 3 is the reason to play Grandia 3. That and having your,
Literally the
that,
only reason.
that and having your
Apparently-
mom as a main character.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Hey mom, I'm gonna go out on a journey with a girl I just met. Hell no, you're not. I'm coming with you. That's
Yes.
fantastic premise for a character.
Which is good. It keeps the long-standing Grandia tradition of some kick-ass moms.
It really does. There are some badass mums in Grandia. But, yeah, make another Shadow Hearts game. Keep all the interesting mythology. Make sure that it's maybe more serious than silly, and keep some silliness in there. Shadow Hearts 1 does have silliness, because Yuri is a complete jackass.
Yeah.
So,
Please don't drop the silliness, please.
Yeah, not all of it, definitely. And just tighten up the mechanics even more. Make it 21st century viable, well, 2017 viable, and you're onto a winner with us anyway, I think. And so,
Definitely.
yeah, I think that is where we're going to end it for this week. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. We have loved talking to you about Shadow Hearts Covenant, which is a wonderful cult classic. Everyone should play this series. So, just some general notes and information you should have. March, we're going to be tackling an all-time classic, Chrono Trigger, so please join in for that. I don't know if anyone has a bad word to say about Chrono Trigger. Maybe.
I have a feeling it's going to be a very positive podcast, those 2 episodes.
Yeah, I think so. I'll try and
That'll
dig
be
around. Yeah, a lot of fun, and first time coming back in like 5 years, so I'm looking forward to Chrono Trigger.
Gosh, only 5 years. Wow.
Yeah.
It's been about 20 years for me.
It only came out here like 6 years ago.
It's only been about 5 years for me too, since the last time I played Chrono Trigger was right when the DS version came out.
I want to get that.
It's good.
But no. We've also got some bonus episodes in the pipeline. We've got one which is going to be about video games from Japan that never reached us. We really want them. Please bring them over. We're going to throw a list to everybody and just talk about them and have some fun. But in the meantime, if you want to send us some questions about Shadow Hearts, about any games that we've done, or if you want to just talk to us about old RPGs, then you can email us. Mike will diligently answer all your emails with love if you send them to retro@rpgfan.com. Or
with love is debatable.
Well, I think you're a nice
With
guy.
gusto.
With gusto is a
Sure,
better way of
yes.
saying it.
That works. I'll take that.
Or obviously we've got the RPG fan forums where you can shoot any of us a message or just post on the boards. We love to have suggestions, thoughts, comments, everything. Or even better, you can rate and review us on iTunes, any other media platform that you listen to us on. We would love 5-star reviews, obviously, but we love anything. So just give us a really good rating. Tell us what we're good at. Tell us where we can improve. But if you want to talk to any of us directly, we can obviously share our social medias. So, Robert, where can we find you?
I'm on Twitter @MissanthroBob. And I guess if you're on the RPG fan forums, I'm Towns Carmarty.
Yay. Steph, media maven of RPG fan or social media maven, where are we at?
If you contact me through the sites Twitter and Facebook, that's probably me answering you back, me with somebody else. But on the forums, I'm Dice, and on Twitter, I'm Dice SMS.
You and Nilsson are the best people. Mike, where can we find you?
Right. I'm Monsoon on the forums and @TheRealMonsoon on Twitter.
And you can hit me up on Twitter at Alana Hagues, or just I'm Diving Falcons on the boards. I do have a blog which I'm supposed to be updating called The Ruby Rogue on my Twitter. So yeah,
I also have a blog that I don't update enough.
Oh, redundant blog.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, failed blogging is.
We're just rotten with neglected blogs on this podcast.
Oh, yeah. But no, we would love to hear your thoughts. And thanks for listening as always. Next month, Chrono Trigger coming up. Video games we want localized. Thanks very much for listening. See you soon.
消えてゆく狭間に生まれ来る奇跡がそれぞれの心の指す場 場所へ導く私にできること静かに満ちて